Hi, welcome aboard. My name's Alma, and this is One Left Inboard. Today, I am going to answer another Reddit question. This Redditor asks, like the title says, I'm looking for some people to share their experiences so far with being a flight attendant. You don't have to share your company if you're not comfortable doing that, but could you share how long you've worked there, your base and location, if you commute, and your experiences, and any other pertinent information that plays a role into how you are feeling now? So before I dive right into that question, I am a flight attendant for a major legacy carrier based here in the U.S., and I've been a flight attendant for 2 years. And to get right to the point, my experiences with this job are good ones. I do love this job. I don't want to ever do anything else, and they'll call the police when I'm 105 and say, we've asked her nicely and even given her a severance package, but she remains where forbidden. She will not leave. No, I'm kidding. But I do love it. I do understand that not every flight attendant is experiencing this career in the same way that I am, and we are all having different experiences. I will go a little back in time, not to digress too much, but I knew quite a bit ago that I wanted to do this job. I had a really lovely experience with a flight attendant, actually for the carrier that I work for. Over a decade ago, I was very green to life, and I was trying to connect somewhere, and she saw that I was confused. Now knowing what I know, this poor innocent flight attendant was probably just getting off a rotation and just wanted to go home. She saw someone in distress. She stopped, talked to me, and explained that I was canceled due to weather. And in my little mind, I could not picture leaving the hotel or leaving the airport, getting a hotel room, making it back in the morning. I was just at a loss. And she explained to me there was a place for me in the airport itself that I could stay for free. And when I said, well, where is the U.S. though? She just looked like, and how do you tie your boots in the morning? What's happening? But she was still so kind, and she actually walked me over there. And it just dawned on me at that moment, this must be a really cool job. And that's exactly what I said out loud. And she said, it's not all the glamour that you think it is, but I'll never do anything else. And not to quote her and steal her line, but that is exactly how I feel all this time later, but with only 2 years of experience as a flight attendant under my belt. So to pick some specific things that were discussed in this question, how long I've worked there is 2 years. My base and location, I'm going to go ahead and keep private. Sorry about that. I am at one of my airline's smaller bases, and I do not commute. However, I did commute, and I knew that I would have to. That wasn't a surprise. I did an entire episode on commuting. I laid out a sample rotation, so I won't go too much into that. You're welcome to seek that out on my YouTube channel, but it eats into my time off commuting. And while I found a clean, safe, inexpensive, and very reliable crash pad hotel situation in the base that I was commuting to, it just isn't for me. One of the draws to this position and lifestyle are all the days I have off, and anything that eats into that is no friend of mine. So I did commute. I don't anymore. I'm at a smaller base that's very senior. But honestly, I'll take these early reports, oddly structured rotations with 4 legs a day sometimes, and, not terribly exciting layovers. I'm so sorry to continue to talk about Pittsburgh that way, but I was never dying to go to Pittsburgh, but I'll take all that to not have to commute. The reality is that I didn't become a flight attendant for layovers. No matter how you slice it, I'm at work and I'm away from home. So I can see where maybe, if you've not traveled a lot and this is a way that, you're seeing the world, which is fantastic. I'm not minimizing that or saying, oh, you didn't leave your small hometown before you became a flight attendant, you little country mouse. I'm not saying that at all. Very cool if this is how you are leaving your hometown for the first time. Very cool. But, and I wasn't like incredibly, world traveled by any means before I became a flight attendant, but layovers really weren't the reason I got into this. And I'll tell you why I wanted to do this job. I love constant change. And back then, even then, I realized that I didn't want to go to the same office every day and sit in the same traffic every day and see the same coworkers, whether I loved them or not, every single day, and just sort of work for the weekend. And what is a weekend? Because at the last company that I was at before I became a flight attendant, I worked for them for 6 years. And it was only that last year that I had nights, weekends, and holidays off. Prior to that, I was working, 340 plus days, anywhere between 320 and 340. So what is a weekend? But yeah, I just didn't want to go. It just seemed very repetitive. And I know I've spoken about this before, but if I get off of work at 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it would be, let's just say 5, and then I have a 30-minute commute. So now 5:30. I'm a person who likes to go to the gym. So let's say now I have to wait around for the 6 o'clock CrossFit class. I'm done around 7. I'm still about 20, 30 minutes from home. So now I'm getting home at 7:30. I need to eat dinner. I need to potentially prepare it. Maybe I was smart and put something in the crock pot. And so now I'm eating around 8:30. I need to shower. I need to decompress. And now I'm really just waiting to go to sleep to start it all over again. And that feeling, I truly had people I enjoyed seeing every day at work. Multiple locations, multiple departments, multiple stations that I work. It's it wasn't all bad. Don't let me make it out like that. It's just this is preferred for me. So I knew that this thing of not being home a lot wasn't going to bother me as long as there was some balance to it. And honestly, it's like 12 to 15 days off a month is incredible. That's, I don't know that I've ever had less than 12. I certainly don't think I have. And I know that I've had more than 15 days off a month, but not by much, maybe 18. But yeah, even I just got my schedule recently for this coming month, and I have a lot of work. I have a lot of work, and I have not been able to manipulate my schedule in any way. There was nothing I could pick up, and there was seemingly nothing falling off as I tried to drop things. And I still have a lot of work, and I still have 15 days off. That's crazy. I love that. And they're in chunks. So I do my little work, and it's different coworkers and different, pilots and different passengers and different aircraft and, a different challenge based on routes and timing and stuff. And I love that. And then I come home and I make my own meals, and I go to the gym, and I'm with my dogs, and I, can see my partner, and, I'm able to, go over to see family. I'm able to here in where I live and, back a few states over where I'm from. And it's, 3 on, 4 off, that kind of vibe. And sometimes my rotations will go back to back if I've requested specific days off, but typically I can avoid that. And so, yeah, go to work, off for a stretch of days. I feel like a normal person. I'm actually, you know what? Blame you having to hear this podcast. Yet another flight attendant who feels like anybody gives a shit about what we have to say. I enjoy one thing. I'm passionate about one thing. And what do? I've got to tell the world about it and create a podcast. Sorry. I didn't mean to get carried away, but, I'm having so much free time that I don't know what to do with it all the time. It's not like every single day is packed. Now, for those of you who can live in base, and that base is where you have tons of family and maybe you have elderly grandparents or aging parents, or maybe you yourself are in a different phase of life and you're helping your children with their children. If you are on a bowling league, or you do a pool nights, darts nights, any type of billiards. If every Tuesday you get together with your friends for taco whatever it is, it's going to be even cooler, because when you are home, you are home. You're home. And it's really beautiful and really amazing. Now, I do want to say that reverse commuting is a thing. Like, some bases are inexpensive, right, compared to the rest of everything. And so people will meet others in training, or maybe it's so inexpensive that you can afford to rent an apartment yourself. You get set up there, but kind of every chance you can, maybe once a month or twice a month, they will reverse commute to go back home. And there they don't have an established location. They just have like a family member or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, friends, whatever, and they stay there. So that's a possibility. But oh my goodness, I'm through the moon. I had some reserve days, and I'm sure by now everybody knows reserve days are where you are on call, and every airline tends to have similar procedures. Usually it's a 2-hour call out, 3 if you have multiple airports, like New York City has LaGuardia and JFK, and for some airlines, even still Newark. So their call outs are a little bit longer than that 2-hour period. But, I was on those, and I was able to just sort of preference. I got a trip that I knew would make me illegal for my second day, and I had a dinner to go to that I really wanted to go to, and it was on a Saturday, okay? And then I knew that I was at risk for being used on Sunday, since I sat and got paid for nothing, basically, because that trip on Friday made me illegal. And so I went ahead and preferenced something that, let me off reasonably. The dinner for the holiday it's like it goes on till 1 or 2 a.m. It's crazy. So I was able to just put a change of clothes in my car and change when I got off duty for a 1 day there and back, and changed and went on to the second dinner. And I was able to do that, even though I couldn't have that weekend off, I was able to make it work for me. And I think that you'll find, if you become a flight attendant, or you are a flight attendant and you're just kind of newer, there are so many ways that even though we're just sort of at the mercy of our scheduling computer and all of those seniors ahead of us that are getting their rotations, like you'll want to lay over, say in, I don't know, New Orleans, you want some beignets, and then you ask for a specific trip. Those people who got it didn't care. It was just that it was a high time trip, and you're like, you don't even care about where you're going. Anyway, too specific, right? No, I think you'll find that you're able to work it out. And the coolest part, I think, for me, 2 years in, and they're like, listen, it gets better. Like the senior mamas that are still loving it, and they want to support people, good flight attendants that they can tell also love it. They are just like, listen, it gets better. And I'm like, wow, like if this sucks, like I can't imagine, like I can't imagine if this is bad, because it's still pretty darn cool. Physically, I mean, a lot of people complain about sleep. Again, I don't worry. Like I bid to not have international trips. I don't like the jet lag. We have flight benefits, and we're also partnered with like hotels. And honestly, in Europe, Airbnbs are just like completely affordable. So if I want to go there, I'm going to fly for free, drink some champagne, watch some movies, sleep, and get there and spend a few days. Like, and I will tell you that flight attendant, like if a family is planning a trip and they've saved the money for the tickets and the rooms and the food and the excursions and the tours and all that stuff, then they're probably going to want to be there for a longer period of time. Because how often are they really going to fly even main cabin all the way over there and get the time off and get the family together? With us, it's a little different because we have these chunks of days off, and, you know, you can move things around with other flight attendants or that, you know, system for trips that, you know, are no longer held by a flight attendant because they're now off their, you know, they're not on a schedule, they're sick or something, whatever. And you can move things around and then have like all the time that you needed to fly to pay your bills, but still your time off has become consecutive, and your big chunk is all together anyway, and you can just go out there. So for us, it is a little bit different, but anyway, moral of the story, I don't really experience any flights where I'm like, my sleep's off. Occasionally I'll get these turns, and honestly, I preference them. They're very productive trips. They do come back on a red eye, and then it's true. I'm just like done for the day that I come in. Like I sleep, and then my body's like, hey, it's 2 p.m. We're not supposed to be sleeping. So I take a nap and I try to get something done productive. I don't even know if I have what it takes to go to the gym on those days. But that is like maybe once every quarter or something that I'll preference one of those. I mean, I really don't know. It's not often enough to like even talk about, I don't think. And then as far as internationals with jet lag and coming back, no. Even when I'm getting to my layover hotels late, it's still like not criminally late. It's still like 11, 12. Like I think maybe 1 a.m. is the latest that I'm usually getting to my layovers. And that itself is not common. So sleeping, not so much. I mean, I can say, and I said this before, one of kind of like a fault of mine was when I first started and I had done all those years of like working all these days in a row and never having time off. I mean, it was so bad. One time I got pink eye, and when when my doctor told me, I realized based on the horrified look on her face that I must have been smiling. And then I had to explain, I'm so sorry. I'm not a maniac with a weird pink eye, kink, or anything like that. I just have been working so much, and I will not be able to go to work, and I will have a doctor's note. It was crazy. That's why, like, when, I don't know, I don't want to be insensitive, but like when I hear flight attendants talking about like, you know, they don't appreciate us and we need more money and we should be paid this way and that way. And I'm like, is there another place that you're going to go work half the month and make that much money? That's crazy. Like, what? You don't even know it doesn't sound like you've done anything like terribly difficult. And look, I'm not trying to sound a corporate bootlicker that doesn't, you know, think some things could be improved upon. But I think ultimately it's like, just repeat the snacks. Like, just repeat them. Have you ever worked 18 hours? You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Like, obviously that's illegal, but I mean, I think I did. Yeah, I probably did 18 hours. Yeah, for sure. And then plus I commuted. So a lot of times, even when I was just hitting those 12 hours, it was like, here's the way that they got away with 18 hours is they would give me an extended break in the middle. And they're like, oh, well, we never said you couldn't go home. And it's like, I live over an hour away. You know, I can't. It doesn't make sense to go home. Anyway, crazy. But I mean, it's really, I love it. Anyway, I think it's very simple work. I think that the scheduling, I'm able to have a life when I'm home. I'm able to make a good, affordable living. I'm able to add trips up if I want. I can pick up out of base and have cooler trips. I did that one time for a Hawaii trip, you know, that we don't have out of base. And that was really cool. So I think that, with avoid, like, not even really having to worry about international trips, the sleep thing is just like a moot point for me. Anyway, I think I digressed, totally derailed, and lost my place. So hopefully you know what I mean when I say all of what I just said, that I cannot remember where I was. So any other pertinent information that plays a role into how I'm feeling right now? Okay, well, commuting's bad. Boo, commuting. I'm just kidding. Over half of us do it. I didn't like it. Many people do. I lived in a base for my airline when I was commuting, and there were plenty of people that lived here too that were commuting by choice. They could have been transferred here and they chose not to because their seniority, or juniority rather, was holding better schedules wherever they were based, wherever they were commuting to. So I will say, pertinent information for me, it's a completely different job when you're based at home. Completely different job when you're based at home. For airlines that are like, I don't know, I'm recently learning about straight reserve and national reserve. What's happening? Pertinent information, really look into the airline you're going for's reserve system, okay? And really look into how many years you're going to be on reserve and how that works. Obviously, there's a bunch of flight attendants that are willing to do it, and they know going in that there's a risk of like that lifestyle. I don't know how they do it with commuting. I don't know anything about that. I can't speak to it. Pertinent information is learning about that and figuring out what airlines have the best reserve systems out there for brand new people. And what exactly does all of that mean? I would love for other flight attendants who hear this to come in the comments. Let's do it. You don't have to mention your airline if you don't want to, but just state the type of system that is in place where you are, how long it takes that situation to change for most flight attendants, and just really hold a clinic about. I would love that. I mean, I've asked questions before and I just get very, like, just a few short answers. But anyway, that is going to be the game changer for how long you can last in this position. No matter how, like, everything you said is like me. Like when I would fly, I was a status member for my airline before I became a flight attendant, and I would just kind of read the room. Like I didn't want to bug anybody, but there were like oftentimes flight attendants that, I figured would talk to me, and I would ask them and they were honest. And I knew the complaints or the worries that I had, like, okay, well, like, I know this, that's going to be great. Okay, that's fine. That's actually, I prefer that. Okay, that's not a big deal. Like, knowing that the layovers wouldn't mean anything to me, that I would be doing, lousy trips from the get-go, and I may have to commute. Okay, how long? Because I'm willing to do it if it means getting my dream job. And the moment I don't have to, I won't. And that's like literally what happened. But anyway, so I would ask those questions, and that was one of the things, that was mentioned to me as pro versus con. And so even outside of all the things that I felt I could meet those challenges, and some of those challenges would just be temporary. And turns out 2 years later, I was right about what I knew about myself. That reserve situation, that, like, if you have a child in school, or if you have a child in all, your entire support system is where you live, and where you live is not a base for your airline, you have to commute, and you're going to always have to commute. There are some conversations you should have with other flight attendants and yourself. So that's what I'll say about that. Commuting, crazy. Commuting, reserve, I don't know. I can't speak to all of those types of reserve systems. I'm just not educated enough on it, but please help her out, or him, whomever this question was posed by. Okay, so other pertinent information. I had several actually difficult jobs, and I promise I'm not trying to shit on any of the flight attendant, and I'm not trying to call a group of people a bunch of babies that have never done anything difficult in their life. I'm not. For me personally, we're talking about my response to that question. I not only have I done difficult things and labor intensive things and worked, super hard for very long periods of time and, extended lunch breaks so that I would have been away from home for these like god awful amounts of time to climb a ladder that I successfully climbed. But yeah, all of that, when I'm, tired or frustrated with people, I'm just able to think in real time, think back to that and just be like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And I use the example of like people that are corralling toddlers at a daycare, people that are dealing with chain smoking drunks in the bar room, people who are dealing with, patients at a hospital, students at a school, their parents at the PTA meetings, the hostess that seats them only the terrible tables at the restaurant they wait at, and the nights, weekend, and holidays that most people in entry-level positions work. And by the time that I came here, I was no longer in an entry-level position, and I did have nights, weekend, holidays off, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. And so then I can reflect back and go, this is what I wanted. It's not to say that we should be doormats and never ask for any improvement upon our benefits and compensations and pay. It's just to say that when I informed myself about the company I wanted to work for, not just fly with as a status member, but work for as an employee, this is how I pay my bills, this is how I make my living. I don't want to have days off and work anywhere else. And some flight attendants do that. They either add flight attendant like rotations, or, they're nail techs that pick up some shifts, they're nurses that pick up some shifts, they're, babysitters, dog walkers, etc. I went in knowing what I needed to know about how I was compensated, union versus not union, reserve programs, etc. And knowing that at the base level, this is what's offered to me that I'm willing to accept. And I think that's something that you should do. And I say this a lot, but close your eyes. Imagine yourself repeating the same snack options to anywhere between 50 to 75 people. People that are sitting right next to each other that you were sure they would fit. You've worn noise canceling headphones. They actually make on an airplane human voice better, because it's got all the noise in the background out. And you would have swore that they would have heard you, but they didn't. They asked you to repeat it. And so you do. Think of that. Think about the safety demos and the boarding and the helping, impaired passengers, mobility and strength impaired passengers, lifting their bags up and telling people how numbers work and, all of that good stuff. The service in the aisles, the crying babies, the snarky passengers, the wives that treat you like the help and will only order through their husbands, and the husbands that had a little too much red wine and are priggish and rude. Not all the time is this happening, but all the time you are doing a service, and all the time you are going to repeat yourself. I will just say that. But anyway, keep your eyes closed unless you're driving. Think of dragging your bags like through the airports and, getting them to the shuttles and the hotels and getting them up the elevator and unpacking and packing really fast in the morning again and all that good stuff. If that doesn't bother you, if you're just like, yeah, what I do a different version of shit work, and there's still, you think, yes, I'm okay with that, then of course, then become a flight attendant. But if already you're just like, that's going to get old, then I can't imagine that it's worth anybody's time. Some airlines pay you for training. It's usually minimum wage if they do pay. Others do not pay you. Others give you a bonus at the end of training if you pass. You're paying for your own meals. They are paying for your room and board. Typically, I don't know how every single airline works, but to go through that period of time where you're just set back with financially, then you get, schedules. And if you're on reserve, again, like that could really eat into your finances. Or even if you're with an airline that has a different reserve program and you have both rotations and reserve days built into your schedule and you're able to make some money, it's going to take you a few paychecks to do that. And if you really, really need to repad your savings and your checking, then you may have to work yourself into exhaustion those first couple months. Not cool. To do that, to just find out that you don't like how dry it is in the cabin, and you get motion sick, and the airplanes are always too cold or too hot, and turns out you don't even like people, and you barely like to travel. You were hoping that maybe you would go to Dubai and take some photos and impress people on social media, or your parents are counting on your past to go anywhere because they've never left your hometown. And that puts pressure on you to keep a job that you hate. I would advise against it. But we're not talking about you. We're talking about me. Other things to know, things that play a role into how I'm feeling right now. I do not have children. I know many flight attendants who do, and they're doing just fine. And I'm not trying to be rude, but I think they're doing better than fine because they have days away. And they can do things they want to do. They don't have to listen to Bluey for the 8,000th time, but they can catch up on their shows, their podcasts. When they are in their hotel room, there's no dishes. There's no organizing anything there's nothing they could be doing. They're a bajillion miles away from home. They couldn't be weeding the garden. There's nothing to be done. And so then when they're home for that 4-day stretch, if that's how they do their schedule, they're really, really home and they're really present, and they make breakfast in the morning and they pick the kids up from school and they do something after school and all that good stuff. So while I don't have children, don't feel discouraged. Many people do it. Other things that are pertinent to how I'm feeling right now. I do have 2 dogs that require care. Fortunately, I have been able to enlist a much less expensive option than doggy daycare because, wow, that's like child level prices, child care prices. Wow. Human child care. I am a very active person, so I try to get a whole bunch of steps that equal to about, 4 or so miles on my layovers. I would go to the gym, but I don't know what to do there because I go to CrossFit and I'm very spoiled to walking in, somebody telling me what to do, yelling at me when I don't do it, and then just sort of leaving almost exactly an hour later. So I don't know what to do in gyms. So I usually try to get some cardio in. And that's even true for the winter months. I did get my 4 miles in Spokane. Very cold at the time. Anyway, so that helps. That helps me feel resilient for some of those times that I do have weird hours that are kind of rare. Helps me with just the physical nature of dragging bags and carts and yada yada. I also don't take too many things seriously, okay, a safety and all that stuff, but I just let things roll off my shoulders. So I work up front. Those other 3 flight attendants work together for main cabin. I typically don't use my assist for anything, even during the boarding process. And we slowly, not too slow actually, but usually within the first leg, we find out if everybody vibes with each other. And I don't not use anybody because I'm a girl's girl, number one, and I'm a flight attendant's flight attendant. I want everybody to be we could all gather in my room, if you want, and we could just have some wine and talk and do everything but pillow fighting because I'm not into that. But it could be a sleepover. It could be a slumber party. And I respect boundaries and understand why it's not. And I'm, of course, not being serious. I don't want other people in my room the entire night. But moral of the story is it could be the friendly, get-togethers at the end. Honestly, I'm based with flight attendants. I think we do something on at least one of the layovers. Sometimes that first day you're getting in late and you're tired, or vice versa, but usually on one layover. But I'm saying anyway is that I'm not waiting for them to be nightmare crew members. It just doesn't happen enough. One of the things that this poster said was, catty or bitchy crewmates. I have talked before about coworkers that hate their job, but honestly, they're usually mean to the passengers, and they're usually just miserable having to do basic things like go through the cabin, like for safety, not safety, but like compliance stuff or like, repeating snacks. And I mean, I don't like that. I do strongly dislike that. But like, as far as how they treat fellow flight attendants, I don't see a ton of awful people like that. And usually the majority of the times that I have, a good attitude kind of turns it around. I recently picked up a trip where it was mostly senior people, and they just thought I was going to come in there swinging as flight lead and just do all the things that I wanted to do my way. And then once they realized I was very competent, they were just like, oh, all right. Well, and they just kind of bowed out and did the things that they always do. Cool. And didn't even have to be a conversation. I was just kind and friendly because I knew they'd warm up. But anyway, that is not a thing that I face all the time. I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, everybody's cool. Those other 2 times, it's just one person that's just medium awkward. And I've only had 2 unhinged people in 2 years. Like, unhinged. Like, I was just like, I don't want to fly with this person ever again. This is just a job. This is a job. This is going to work. This is all the examples I've ever given. Punching in at the hospital, at the bar, at the restaurant, at the daycare, at the nail salon, at the hair salon, at the whatever, wherever you work, at the gas station, at Walmart, at the grocery store, wherever you work. This is that. It just comes with it comes with a lifestyle. It comes with being gone. There are plenty of jobs. Oil field workers are gone weeks at a time. There are people who build power lines that work hitch work where they're gone days, sometimes weeks at a time. There are many positions, over the road truck drivers, gone all the time. So are we. And honestly, not all the time. Half the time, in fact. Half of the time. So I wish that I could give you some dirty tea, spill the gossip, and tell you that I work for a shit company that hates all of us and treats us like numbers, and we have to know our supervisors to get on somebody's good side, to just protect our own jobs, and that, all these senior mamas are out here to set you up for failure, and they're taking pictures, and the new people are taking pictures and sending it into management, and that the pilots are assholes, and that, there's passengers are losing their mind and being on a TikTok all the time. No. Look, you get, okay, this is for me as a non-commuter. Sorry. Don't mean to brag. You get up, you get ready, and you go to the airport, you fly, you lay over, you eat the food that you packed, you do some type of activity because we're trying to stay healthy and strong over here. And then you watch Golden Girls, and you call your best friend on FaceTime or video chat or whatever, and you go your ass to sleep. Okay? Maybe on layover 2, you wake up, you catch your shuttle, you fly, you get to your layover, you shower, you go throw that ass in a circle for a little bit in your cowgirl boots that you brought because you laid over in Nashville. Maybe you make out with a cute dude or girl or whatever you like. And then you probably get dragged out by a flight attendant because we're all scared that anybody's getting kidnapped, and we're like, you do what you want to do when you get back to your hotel. Not on my time. You get back to that hotel first. Anyway, but you make out with somebody cool, and you go back and you take a shower and you get all your stuff ready just in case you oversleep, so everything is ready to go. Uniform out, bags packed, shower. You snack on those snacks that you shoved in your bag because you're a little tipsy. And you watch Golden Girls until you fall asleep. Okay? You wake up. You get on the shuttle. You pop some Advils. Hopefully you showered again. And you fly, and you're home. Okay? And that's it. It's every now and then you have somebody that's remarkably awesome or remarkably awful. But for the most part, it's just like every other, think about it. How many actually awful people do you meet? And then hopefully the hiring process sort of changed the numbers of the sample population. Hopefully your chances are even better than your ground people life job. And anyway, so yeah, that's it. Like pilots, I mean, look, I'm not here to say It's been 2 years. I haven't seen anything out of line. I'm sure I know flight attendants that are dating pilots, and something had to happen for that to go down. But it's not like this weird thing where they're incredibly rude or sleazy. They're just like prestigious nerds that love their aircraft, and they just kind of leave us alone, to be honest. I can't speak for regionals. Y'all are wild. y'all are just absolutely doing whatever you want to do, apparently. But for mainline, I don't. Passengers and yeah, they don't know how numbers work for some reason on airplanes. Blows my mind. But honestly, like, I had a medical emergency, and even the people who weren't responding with me to that emergency were incredibly kind. Incredibly paid. And the times that people are just doing whatever the hell they want and it gets under my skin, I won't remember those people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not that big of a deal. It's really not. So anyway, that's how I'm doing over here. So to run through, flight attendant for 2 years, did commute for several months, no longer commute, live in base. I have trips in addition to reserve time. I work about 3 days on, 4 days off. Of course, that's not always the case. I typically have about 15 days off, sometimes as little as 12, sometimes as high as 18, give or take. But I have lots of time off. And the pay, I think, in compensation, flight benefits for myself, the ability to jump seat when those flights are bought out by all the passengers, the ability to jump seat if I'm flying with, a pass rider, they can't. I take the jump seat, they get the last seat, that kind of thing. The ability to live anywhere, commute anywhere, pick up trips from other bases and go really cool places if I want to actually know, like the senior mamas and papas say, it just gets so much better to not see the same faces over and over again, to have more quality time at home when I'm home. Those days are mine. I think I was saying earlier that I treated everything like a vacation when I first started, to my own detriment. And when I would get back from commuting, I just wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't cook that first day. I wouldn't go to the gym that first day. That changed. I took ownership of my days off. And certainly as a person who lives in base, I take, those are my days. Those are mine. I also put in, like, senior mamas and papas, they can bid those turns, the there and back. And then oftentimes they'll wake up and they'll be like, not tomorrow, Satan. And they'll post it. And then I can pick those up and make a nice little stack of extra money to just go there and come back. It's a dream. And if you have an unhinged coworker, you're only with them for 3 more days and you probably will never see them again. Alternatively, I have made friends that I touch base with, that a real best friend. If something's happening, you need to physically be there. You need to be in their life. You need to console them. You need to respond. But these people, you can check, like, it's such a less of we're giving so many people everything, right? We're in customer service. We're giving to our best friends and our siblings and our partners and our parents and all that good stuff. These are friends without that much demand. And it's great because they know that your lifestyle is different, because they're a flight attendant too. And they appreciate how's your mama? How was the soccer game? How was your knee, like, from the thing and the stuff? Really cool too. And sadly, you probably won't fly with them again. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm digressing. Holy 43 minutes. I am so sorry. I am Alma. This has been one left inboard. I'm about to go to podcast jail. This was too long. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments. If you are an active flight attendant and you have anything to say, of course, please leave that in the comments as well. Thank you so much. Bye. 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 Sorry for taking so long.